Welcome to Recruiting Recruiters Part 1. Have you ever wondered why some recruitment businesses seem to be talent magnets, whilst others, possibly including you, struggle to recruit great recruiters? The fast growth recruitment business that I ran started with 3 people, shabby offices, and ended up with over 100 staff in 4 different countries. We created that talent magnet. In this 2-part series, I've broken down the creative thinking and processes needed for you to do the same or better in your business. So let's join the session with me showing a room of recruitment business owners how to win the recruitment war for talent. This phrase, the war for talent, which McKinsey originated in the 90s, is still around. You see it in the press quoted from time to time. What's your view on it? Is there still a war for talent? Is there a war for talent for great recruiters? For me, absolutely there is. And I think it's worth looking at some of the aspects of the McKinsey report. So if you take a look at the wording in bold, I don't know if you can see that at the back. According to McKinsey, they're saying that what made the difference was a pervasive talent mindset. So the leaders of the business were more focused on attracting great people to their organization. And think about yourself at the moment. How often do you think about proactively finding the best talent? Or is it reactive? Is it just when you feel you need to recruit someone? Or are you always recruiting? And here they talk about a case study of 13,000 executives across 120 companies. Companies that were proactively managing their talent acquisition had a 22% better return for shareholders, which I think is pretty impressive. So what we're going to do today is look at 4 stages. The starting point is identify the talent pool. Who is in your talent pool? Who are the targets? Who are the prospect recruiters who could be working for you? Then we'll look at ways to get the talent to want to work for you. If Parker Bridge, back in the day, 3 people, shabby offices, second-hand everything. We worked out how to get the talent to want to work for us. It takes creative thought. It's not difficult, but it takes a bit of creative thought. Then we'll look at some filters to prevent costly mistakes. I wonder if anyone's been in this situation in the room. It's Tuesday evening, 6 o'clock. The buzzer goes, the recruiter comes into your interview room, you sit down with them, and within 30 seconds you think to yourself, not right for me. You go through the motions and they leave. The next evening you see someone else, slightly better caliber, but now they're 6 out of 10 caliber. You still reject them. The day after you see someone else, 5 out of 10 caliber, you reject them. The day after that, you see someone 7 out of 10 caliber, not quite good enough for you, but you utter the immortal words, I'll take a flyer on them. 3 months later, you're sacking them after they've stolen your database. They've caused one of your big billers to leave. They've blamed you for their underperformance, and you're back at square one. Now, we'll look at filters today to prevent those costly mistakes, barriers to entry. And if you thought recruiting recruiters was hard, I might make it a notch harder for you today by suggesting that raising the bar in terms of the quality is a sensible thing to do. Say no to the people who are good, but not quite good enough for you. That's a hard thing to do, by the way, but we'll explore that. And the final aspect of it is attraction and retention. Now, there are, huge books, kind of this thick on Amazon, about retention and integration. We'll touch on it towards the end of the session, but the bulk of today I'm going to spend on the first 3 parts. So, the war for talent. Who's in your talent pool? How many people in the room focus only on experienced recruiters? Quick show of hands. Okay, so we've got 1 or 2 people only focus on experienced people. How many people in the room only focus on trainees? And how many people focus on both? Okay, excellent. So for me, it's about just being talented. And I think if you're focusing only on experienced people, there's a real danger because everybody else is after that same talent. And let's just take a look at the thinking behind this. You know, according to the REC, you tend to hear there's about 70,000 recruiters in the United Kingdom. Who knows whether that figure is accurate, but there or thereabouts. What percentage of those do you think are good enough to work for you? So regardless of geographical location at the moment. So we've got 10%, we've got 5%.
I think it's probably a lot higher. I mean,
A little bit higher?
top billers are the top, but
Sure.
there's a bunch of great trainees that have just done their first 9 to 12 months.
Sure, so you're looking higher. Okay. Anyone over on this side? 15 maybe? Okay. Who knows what the answer is? I'm going to go for somewhere in the middle, which tends to be the answer, which is why in the best tradition of Blue Peter, I've already done it. So 10% tends to be the kind of figure that comes out here. Now, I'm only playing with figures for the moment. Could be higher, could be lower. I'm illustrating a point. So what percentage of those 7,000 are gettable, do you think? So 7,000 good ones maybe, who are good enough to work for you. What percentage of those, if you went after them proactively, would actually be gettable? 1%. Wow, that's pretty tiny. 5 maybe? We've got 3, okay. Someone's going to say 3.5 in a moment.
There are some agencies that are that mediocre that 90% of those recruiters would be good enough to work for.
Possibly so, yeah, so that's barriers to entry, isn't it? I think if you've got high barriers to entry, to focus on the caliber, and that's an important point. You know, if you think of a game changer, think of somebody dropped into your business who could bill £250,000 in the first year. Think of a rookie who could bill £400,000 gross profit in their first year from a standing start. Now that was my best outcome. A rookie in her first year billed £400,000. There are some game changers out there. There are other people who trundle along 60 grand a year or something. So if you're looking for the superstars, the game changers, the best people, the best recruiters, the best trainee recruiters. So that's the aspect that I'm coming from. So if you think what percentage are gettable, I'm going to go for 10%. So you're down to 700 people in the entire UK who are in your talent pool in regard to experience. And if you're focusing only on a certain region, let's say the Southeast, let's say 70% of all the recruitment activity in the United Kingdom is based in the Southeast. Reasonable assumption? So let's multiply that by 70%. So you're now down to 490 people in your talent pool who are of the right kind of caliber, the game changers, the special people. So if you're sector specific, let's say you're in IT, what percentage of the market does IT make? 20%, maybe? 20%? So now we're down to 95. If you say, I'm only recruiting people who've got IT recruitment experience, you're now down to 95 people in the United Kingdom. So it's hard. It's hard to find these people. I will show you some ways that you can get to these people today. But I want to get you thinking today, it's a bit harder than first meets the eye. And if you've ever wondered why the recruitment companies send their worst candidates to you, in many instances, there's a reason behind that. One of the reasons is they don't have many of them. They don't have many of the good ones. And what I'd like to suggest to you is, at the moment, the good ones that they have, they're sending to someone else. I'm going to give you a nominal figure of 5. I reckon the recruitment companies have got 5 secret clients. And they send their best candidates to those 5. They don't send them to you yet. And part of the journey is to build relationships with those rec to recs so they send their best talent to you. As I say, I will cover some of that today. Anyone ever heard this before? Or said it themselves? Rec to recs are hopeless?
Heard it, said it, believe it.
Okay. What about this one? Do you know, I've got a philosophy that you turn into your mother and father in the end. Now, for some people in the audience, that's a scary thought, maybe. But you know, it's not like it was in my day. Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z. People aren't the same anymore. I think that's an excuse. If you want to recruit great people, it's about leadership. It's about thinking your way around it. There are talented, driven, hard-working people out there. It's your job as a leader to find them. Rookies don't build quickly enough. So the question then is, when was the last time you did this? When was the last time you sat down with a blank piece of paper and worked it out? Well, today is an opportunity to do that. Because if you sit down and think about things, you often get a better outcome. And today is an opportunity to do exactly that. To sit down and think about it and plan it out. So I hope this slide has got you thinking about the need to invest time on proactively attracting the best talent. If you look at other great business books like From Good to Great by Jim Collins, anyone read that book? From Good to Great? Yeah, it's a great read, isn't it? Some great stuff in that. And Jim Collins and a team of MBAs analysed a huge amount of businesses in the United States and interviewed the executive board members of those organisations to find out what made them take the leap from good to great. Some really positive learning experiences for any director. One aspect was they are proactive about their talent acquisition. They don't just recruit when they need to recruit, they recruit all the time. All the time. And my kind of metaphor on that, or my description of that, is that as a leader, you want to have a river of talent coming past your door. Your job is to create that river, so the river of talent is coming past your door. And in the river will be bits of garbage. There'll be twigs and bushes and things floating by. Ignore those. Look out for the golden nuggets. Get the river of talent going past your door, and when a golden nugget goes by, reach in and hire the golden nugget. Very, very proactive. I'm going to share with you today some feedback from a friend of mine who had a private audience with Steve Jobs before he died. And as private as you can get, he had 20 people in a private audience. And there was a great idea there about proactively going out and getting the best talent, but I'll come back to that later. So, experienced recruiters. Let's do a little brainstormer now on the strategies that you can employ to attract and find experienced recruiters to your organization. One of those is name gathering. I sat with a recruitment director in an executive search firm, and he said, Mike, I'm having trouble with my internal recruitment. Will you sit in on my interview? So he was interviewing an experienced recruiter. And I said, of course. And then he said, oh, actually, Mike, will you conduct the interview? So I said, yes. So after the interview, he said, I am astonished at the amount of names you gathered during that interview. He said, I'm in executive search. I do it every day with my candidates, but I'm not doing it with the recruiters that I interview. Think about that for a moment. Think about the recruiters that you interview, and think about the names that you could gather during that interview. So very simple things. Who wants to hire a recruitment manager, for example, at the moment? Anyone in the room looking for a recruitment manager? Okay. So imagine a rec-to-rec sends you a pretty hopeless, poor quality candidate. I would suggest you change your mindset and treat that person as part of the river of talent. And when you're interviewing that person, your job is partially to name gather. So I'm looking at this as an opportunity. And when I interview that person, I'm saying to them, what kind of managerial style suits you best? And imagine they say, integrity, to be able to contribute ideas to the business, not to be micromanaged, or whatever it might be. I then say to them, so you report to Bob Smith, because I've asked that question earlier in the interview. How does Bob deliver on that managerial style for you? And imagine if the answer is, Bob is an exceptional manager. I get on great with Bob. Is Bob now somebody on your radar at some point in time to make an approach to? I would suggest that he is. So,
Even though that person is a hopeless recruiter.
absolutely. Yeah, so I'm gathering the name of the manager and I'm qualifying how good is that manager. Every single interview, not just the manager, there are other name gathering techniques, of course. Here's another one. What's morale like in your organization? Now, what's the likely outcome to that question? You're interviewing the poor caliber recruiter. What's morale like? Might whinge about it, absolutely. And then you delve deeper and imagine the outcome is, and he says, oh, it's pretty terrible. And you say, why is that? We've got an awful new manager. He's really causing some problems. What are you now thinking? I'm thinking, how many other people feel the same way as this guy? And that, for me, could be a happy hunting ground. If I want to headhunt from that organization, then there's a pretty strong chance I'm going to hit goal because there's some feeling of dissatisfaction in the organization. You want to find out the best biller in the organization? Well, ask them a question. So where do you rank in terms of billings? I'm number 3. Tell me about number 1 and what number 1 does differently or better than you. And they start to talk. Could you please just put a first name on number 1? His first name's Fred. So imagine you're doing a telephone interview. I'm straight on LinkedIn now, and I've just identified the biggest biller in that organization from that question. If I'm unlucky, Fred, if there's 2 Freds there, you know, but at least I've got the first name, and I've got a pretty good indication as to how good that person might be. So there's a starter for you, name gathering. Sometimes you can get 3, 4, 5 names throughout the course of that interview, which can lead you somewhere at some point in time. We'll look at what to do with those names shortly. But for now, what else needs to go on your recruitment plan? Could I suggest you just split up into groups of 3 or 4, swivel around, kick a few ideas around, and let's then unpick these, and we'll see what else I've got on my slides here. So I'll leave you just to get on with that for a few moments, please. If you're watching this video as part of a team, please pause the session for a moment and see how many different ideas you can come up with to attract game-changing recruiters to your business. When you're done, simply press play and we'll rejoin the session. Now, here's a thought for you. When was the last time you did that? When was the last time you sat down and worked on your internal recruitment strategy and kicked a few ideas around? Or are you, like most people, blaming the Rector X? Are you abdicating responsibility as a leader and saying, the Rector X are hopeless, the adverts don't pull, Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, there's no great people out there. It's about creative thought. It's hard work, but the more thought you put into it, the more you get out of it. And I hope someone's come up with a jackpot idea today, an idea that's going to transform your business. Let's just take a look at that. So, anyone got an idea they'd like to share from the group discussion?
Talk to your clients.
Talk to your clients. So ring your clients up, do a survey on your service. It's a great thing to do, by the way. Service review, either face-to-face, sometimes on the phone. What are we doing well? What can we improve upon? What are our competitors doing that you'd like us to do? Steal your competitors' best ideas, by the way, in that phone conversation. And then, before the call ends, thank you for your positive feedback. Oh, by the way, just before I go, I wonder if you might be able to help me. We're expanding as a business, and we're looking for some top quality recruitment consultants. Of the other recruiters you've dealt with over the years, I wondered who you would recommend as being good enough to work for us. Incidentally, if you're not doing verbal service checks with your clients or face-to-face service reviews, I suggest you start. There are many, many beneficial reasons for doing that. Client referrals, developing accounts, and so on. But in terms of today, we're looking at getting them to give you the names of other great recruiters. And sometimes, who's got a client in their pocket? Has anyone got a client in their pocket? A client who is a friend, who you go for beers with, who you play golf with, who you go to football with, or whatever. Will they put a good word in for you to that competing recruiter and steer them your way? So maybe that's an action for some of you in the room. The client in the pocket. Someone who is a really good friend of yours as well as a client. Okay, so we've got clients. What else?
We were talking about internal staff referrals. So
Brilliant. Simple. Pull out the CVs or have a look at the LinkedIn profiles of your staff and have a look where they used to work. And sit down with them one-to-one in front of that PC and just say, look at the profiles of the people on that LinkedIn profile from their previous organizations and say, what was this person like? I did this with one of my staff some time ago, and she said, oh, that guy was odd. She pointed at the background, on the LinkedIn profile. She said, oh, he was odd. And then she said, oh, he was lovely. And I thought, oh, something went on there. And then she said, he was a superstar. The next day, I'm interviewing the superstar. So you don't always get a hit from it, but it's a great idea. And from time to time, sit down with them. In the busyness of the job, it can be forgotten. Anyone else got a suggestion?
Speak to a lot of candidates about their experiences.
Speak to candidates. So as Parker Bridge grew, I got my managers together and I said, what I want you to do is every single candidate conversation we have for the next few weeks, I want all the staff to name gather the names of the best recruiters in the marketplace. And we executed on it. So the end of a call from one of my recruiters would have been something like, thanks for your time today. How have you found our service? It's excellent. And by the way, which other recruitment firms are you working with? And they say, XYZ recruiters. Okay. Did you deal with Jim Smith there? No, I didn't. I dealt with Bobby Jones. And how good was Bobby's service in comparison to ours? It was excellent. Now, I admit that is only an assessment of service quality on the phone rather than when they open their shirt, they've got a super biller on it. But it's better than just headhunting cold. So we gathered 50 names. I then went to a rec-to-rec. And think about this. What do the rec-to-recs not have? What do they need? Why do they send poor caliber people sometimes to recruitment directors? What do they need? They need good candidates. So I went to them with something they need. And I said, we've got 50 partially qualified recruitment consultants. And I told them how we'd done it. I said, I'd like to retain you to headhunt these people. And we got 3 hires from that campaign. So name gathering and partially qualifying the people, and then either headhunt them yourself if you feel that's appropriate, or engage a rec-to-rec and pay them a retainer if you can find one that you trust to do that. It's a simple idea. Anyone else got an idea?
Look at the names that go to the Recruiter Awards, because if they're consultants, they tend to be the top performers.
Absolutely. So keep your eyes and ears open. Recruiter Awards perhaps, absolutely. What else?
We went to some people's website, they've got like a case study of top consultants that did well, or
Sure.
a little video about somebody that.
Absolutely. So you can look for profiles on the web. One company I worked with recently, we engaged an overseas resourcer. Anyone dealt with any of the companies in India or Pakistan for resourcing purposes? Anyone done it for internal recruitment? So what we did was we mapped out in concentric circles target recruiters in other organizations. And we paid a company in Pakistan, actually, about £500 for the month. And we put a spreadsheet together, and they did an analysis of how good the LinkedIn profile looked, if there was a mobile phone number or a personal email address in the public domain, and about 10% of them had that. They put the LinkedIn profile into the spreadsheet. They put an analysis of their opinion as to how good that recruiter looked, with their specialities and so on. And we got 500 target names from that campaign. Then you can go to a rec-to-rec and attack them if you wish. So that is it's a great idea. Put it on the web. Put it into some kind of spreadsheet pro forma or something. Then you've got a hit list of potential targets. Any more ideas? This was an overseas resourcer in Pakistan. And there are quite a few of them. There's Colville Banks, McCoy, there's obviously James Cairns operations, Greenwich Bell, and so on. And more and more of them are popping up. I mean, my experience of them is if you manage them well, treat them as your own employees. Don't abdicate responsibility and blame them. Treat them as employees. Work with them, help them, coach them, direct them. And you get a lot of value from them. Some very bright people in other parts of the world Yeah, and it's a low-cost resource. But it's a mistake just to say, over to you, in my opinion anyway. Okay, so we've got some good ideas there. Let's look at some more now. Here's a philosophy on networking. Find out where they go and go to those places. See, if you want to target new clients, find out where they go and go to those places. If you want to target new candidates, find out where they go and go to those places. If you want to find new recruiters, find out where they go and go to those places. So think of networking events and forums that recruiters might go to. One that I went to about a year and a half ago was Louise Trionce's UK recruiter event. Everyone familiar with that? Now, I put a set of my DVDs up as a prize. And I'm having a drink, walking around the room, and I bump into this guy, and I get chatting to him. He looks a very sharp character to me. And I said, who do you work for? He said, I've just come back from travelling. I've been away for a year travelling around Asia. I said, sounds great. I said, what were you doing before that? He said, I was in IT recruitment, contract IT. I said, what were your billings? 300,000 gross profit. Now, as it happened, I wasn't looking to hire this guy, but I surmise that some of you in the room would be. So you've got to be in it to win it. You've got to be at these events periodically. Network the room. A bit more about networking shortly. In fact, well, let's talk about it now. Get business cards. See, the thing is, we all want a quick fix. We all want the super biller to be dropped in tomorrow and to start billing immediately. But in actual fact, sometimes it's a slow-burning fuse. And, you know, building relationships and tracking people is a key part of this. So if you meet somebody at a networking event like that, get their business card, mobile phone number and so on, and track them. Stay in touch with them. Build a relationship with them. So networking. This is an idea that worked for a company in Norwich. And a lady was a member of my peer-to-peer learning group for recruitment MDs. And she said, I'm really struggling to recruit recruiters in Norwich. She said, Mike, recruiters are like hen's teeth in Norwich, I promise you. And I said, well, try this as a technique. Because a lot of recruiters get headhunted. And therefore, they push, sometimes push those crass headhunting calls away. So I said, try inviting the person out to lunch. This is a kind of managerial technique, really. So I said, invite them out for lunch. So she did. She made the call. She said, I'm calling from X. The reason for the call is I would like to invite you out for lunch. It's a different kind of call. So the person said, well, why? Why do you want to invite me out to lunch? She said, well, I believe in networking, building relationships, sharing ideas. I've heard your name in the market. So the person said, yes. Went along for lunch. At the end of the lunch, this recruiter said to the MD, thank you for lunch. It was delicious. But I have to say, I'm leaving the recruitment industry. However, I think you should talk to one of my colleagues who's a top quality temporary recruiter. And about 2 weeks later, she'd hired the top quality temporary recruiter. Now, this isn't maybe not an everyday technique to use, but what it illustrates is creativity, just trying something different. If you're proactively attracting top talent, you go out of your way to make it happen. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The striker who has 10 shots at goal sometimes gets the ball in the back of the net, even though 9 go over the bar. That's part of what that's about.
Not every stories.
Not every stories, maybe, yeah. Now, this could possibly give you a hire within the next few days, within the next month. Think back to people you've interviewed in the last 18 months who were good, but for some reason got away from you. Does anyone have a name in their head of someone who was good, but for some reason got away from you? Let me share an anecdote with you from a guy called Mike, who was, at Parker Bridge, we decided to open in Sydney. We ultimately opened in Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, Wellington, Dublin, as well as the London operation. And with Sydney, we wanted, that was our big move, we wanted an Australian or a New Zealander, ideally, someone who we could safely send over there, who understood the culture and so on. That's quite a big ask. So I networked around, I kept asking the question, who do you know, who do you know? And this name came up, a guy called Mike. So I headhunted Mike. We get to the stage where we really like him, and we offered him the job. And then bad news. He turned us down. So we're in the boardroom after he's turned us down, and my fellow directors said to me, I knew it. He just didn't have the bottle to join us. And I said, hold on a minute. I said, if you knew he didn't have the bottle, why didn't you bring that to the table earlier? I said, in my opinion, this is like the 17-year-old boy who asks the pretty girl out for a date, and she turns him down. And he then says to his friends, I didn't fancy her much anyway. So I think it's about, don't take it personally if someone turns you down. So I disagreed with the board, and I tracked Mike. So reactive tracking systems, people who get away from you. So I rang him about a month later. I said, Mike, I've got a great candidate slightly outside our remit, really top quality, and we can't place them. They're just slightly outside our normal remit. And he said, Mike, I'll do a split with you. And I said, Mike, thank you for offering, but I'm not interested in a split. I believe there'll be a good home in safe hands with you. I'd like you to take them over. He said, that's ever so kind of you, Mike. A month later, I'm on the phone to him again. Mike, I'm meeting some clients in London Bridge near your office after work. Wondered if you'd like to join me for a beer. So he did. A couple of months later, Mike, I'm playing golf at a top golf course at the weekend. You mentioned you play golf. Wondered if you'd like to join me as my guest. You fast forward 15 years or so, he's a sterling millionaire from his time driving Parker Bridge in Sydney. It was ultimately sold to a company called Navigator. My belief is I created tremendous shareholder wealth as a result of tracking him, not accepting that, my colleagues believed it was his fault. I believed it was ours. And in fact, it was. We had not got it right. We hadn't got the offer right, the package and so on. And we learned from that. So is there anyone who you've interviewed in the last 18 months, 2 years or so, who springs into your head right now, where there's an instant action for you to go back to your offices and re-engage with that person? And by the way, it's the same philosophy with great rookies. Talented rookies. You can reapproach them. Talented trainees, you can reapproach them and, in a similar fashion, track them. So tracking systems, very simple. Outlook, reminder or something, or something on your database. Clients we've talked at. Client pitches. Has anyone been on a big client pitch recently? And you're sat in reception. And there's you and a colleague on this side. And over here is the enemy. Is that how people see them? So don't see them as the enemy. See them as your potential future colleagues. And walk up to them and shake hands. And then get something out of your pocket, a business card with a mobile phone number on it. Because they'll probably have a mobile phone number on their business card as well. Swap cards, of course, and introduce yourself. I used to say things like, it looks like we're pitching for the same business. Can't say I wish you luck, but nice to meet you, and perhaps we'll have a networking opportunity. And we'd exchange cards. So sometimes you can get people that way. The company I'm working with in Southampton, looking to they had an office in Manchester, and they wanted to open in Southampton, which they've done. And the suggestion there was, they wanted to get experienced recruiters, and the suggestion was, think of people who are sat at home, who are experienced recruiters, probably mums, doesn't have to be, could be a dad, but probably the mum, who's got maybe a couple of young children, who feels that the only real job they can get outside of recruitment is a lowly paid job maybe, perhaps in a supermarket or something. Why not advertise for part-time recruiters? So the campaign was set, part-time recruiters. They were overwhelmed with the response. So could you cater that in your business? I had a part-time recruiter at Parker Bridge who was billing $500,000 a year, and she wanted to work part-time. So she went down to 4 days. I don't mind, $400,000 a year for 4 days or $500,000 for 5 days. I think I can live with that. I'm sure most people can. Part-timers, if you can accommodate them, can add real value. But what I'm really saying here is, if you advertise for part-timers, you probably will get a pretty reasonable response. Then you've got advertising. So where would you consider advertising? What are the best places to advertise? So in the United Kingdom, of course, you've got careersinrecruitment.com, you've got UK jobs in recruitment. Where else? On your internet advertising, do you have a constant presence? Trainee recruiters, constant presence, experienced recruiters. Proactively looking for the best talent. The river of talent. Get the river of talent going past your door. Constantly advertising. Talk to peers. In this room today, you've got a networking opportunity. Where's the best place to advertise for recruiters? Then you've got the quality of the advertisement as well, which we'll touch on in a moment. I live in Berkhamsted, and there's a recruitment company in Berkhamsted who was a member of my peer-to-peer learning program. And I said to him, think about commuters who are travelling into London. They live in Berkhamsted perhaps, and at 6:30 in the morning in February, it's freezing cold, it's pouring down with rain, they're not feeling too good on that journey to work. Maybe they've had a sleepless night with a young child or something. What would you like to see on that advertising hoarding? So we talked about having an advert which draws them in about how you can earn just as much money and more and save the cost of travelling into London by working for them in Berkhamsted. So anyway, a couple of months later, I'm on the train into London. I look round, there's a big advert there, you know, sick of commuting and so on. And he said he got a pretty decent response. He didn't get experienced people, he got trainees from it, but interesting angle. Again, illustrates creativity. I've heard some good things about the radio. Company put a little jingle on the radio. Very inexpensive, much more inexpensive than you think. This company said they got 2 hires as a result of having a jingle on the radio. A little professional voiceover and so on. Hit and miss, not necessarily right for everyone, but it could be right for you regionally perhaps. Rec to Recs. Here's my thinking on the Rec to Recs. They're part of the river of talent. Don't complain about them. Grit your teeth. Use them for name gathering and build relationships with them. And think about this. How can you get them, if they've got 5 secret clients and you're not one of them, how can you get them to send their best candidates to you instead of these 5 clients? What do you need to do? Well, what I did was I wined and dined them. And I turned it on its head. I took them out for drinks. I paid. Not the normal supplier-client relationship. I took them for dinner. I sold my vision, my dream to them. And it works. And also, put some literature together. Take that, make it easy for them. And when they send you a poor caliber people, when they send you a poor caliber person, don't get angry with them. Help them, coach them, thank them for that. Give them feedback. Every now and then they're going to send a superstar to you, but even if they don't, they're giving you the river of talent where you can then name gather. So that was my feeling on the Rec to Recs. Build relationships with them. Then you've got peer referencing. How many people use peer referencing as a candidate sourcing technique? Quick show of hands in the room. 3 or 4 of you. By the way, it's a great technique to generate candidates. So, you know, if it's the end of a candidate conversation, I might say something like, this is, you know, for candidate generation on its own, I might say, Jim, one of the last things I want to do today is make your CV stand out from the crowd. There's a couple of key ways I can do that for you, one of which is to take references from your previous employers. We chatted about that earlier in the interview. The other way you can do it is to get a testimonial about your ability from people that you've worked with at a similar level to you. And the reason this works so well is people you've worked with at a similar level to you often know the day-to-day nature of the job that you do a little bit better than your immediate manager. Would you not agree with that? In that case, could you please give me the names of 2 people who you've worked with at the same level as you at some point in your career who could give a positive testimonial about your ability to help you get a better job? Now that is a candidate sourcing technique. Why not take a version of that and drop it into your recruitment interviews with experienced people. So you might truncate that technique. Who could vouch for you? So Fred, you're still employed by your boss. Who could vouch for you? Another recruiter who's worked with you at the same level as you. Who could we talk to in confidence? Now, if you get that name, you can then develop that relationship and that conversation at some point in the future. So it's a simple thing to do. Maybe build that into your internal recruitment process. Then you've got swap meetings. So swap meetings, I only ever got one hire this way, by the way, but it was a good one. And I used to meet with non-competing recruitment directors as a networking strategy, share ideas. Perhaps you've got an opportunity today to build up a networking ally. Just meet them once a quarter or something, kick ideas around. So I met this lady called Julie, and it turns out she's in secretarial recruitment. We were in finance at the time. One of her staff wanted to go to Australia. Next thing you know, she's working for us in Sydney. So you've got swap meetings, mystery shopping. You know, if you want to test out how good someone is, engage a mystery shopper who can call that person and find out how they deal with that conversation. You're qualifying them in advance as to how good they are. What about your website? Who's ever been on a website where there's a Work For Us button? And the Work For Us button, when you click on it, it says, sorry, there are currently no vacancies. Quick show of hands, how many people have had that experience? Quite a few of us, okay. So have the people coming onto your website, and they learn from it. As human beings, we learn that we've wasted our time doing that. My suggestion here is you have a more definitive statement on your website, which is, we are hiring. Come on in. We are hiring. And then you have a very compelling page on that site that jumps out at that person and makes them appreciate the grass is greener on your side of the fence than it is where they are currently. So it's a simple change, but it can make a difference. I mentioned earlier about the private audience with Steve Jobs. So a friend of mine, before Steve Jobs passed away, had a private audience. There were 20 people in the private audience, so that's apparently as private as it gets. The director of Apple's talent acquisition was in the room. Great job title. Director of talent acquisition. Is that you, by the way? Are you the director of talent acquisition in your business? If not, who is it, by the way? So anyway, my friend then had a chat with him and said, how do you get world-class talent in Apple? He said, because they have got world-class talent. He said, every manager who works for Apple has a metaphorical black book. And in the black book are the target names of 5 world-class individuals who we will hire at some point in the future. And each manager has to report on their tracking activity. So it's the job of those managers to nurture relationships with those target individuals. Not to get them tomorrow, but perhaps to get them in 6 months or a year or 18 months. I thought it was a sensational idea. And when I heard it, I kind of, come on, why didn't I think of that? Proactively building that talent pipeline. So maybe there are some target individuals out there for you who you're not going to get today, but you might get 6 months down the line or a year down the line. We'd all like them today, but the reality is if they're happy somewhere else, nurture the relationship, bump into them, connect with them on LinkedIn, send them information, and so on.
There is another reason why that works.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're called Apple.
True, they've got the brand, absolutely. But, you know, the idea, I think we can borrow from Apple. Because, you know, you're not going to get everyone with that strategy, but absolutely, track them. Stay in touch with people. Because sometimes people are not ready to move today. Who's front of mind? Who's front of mind, you or a competitor? So by nurturing the relationships, bumping into them at events and so on, you can be front of mind. So tracking the stars, mapping competitors we talked about. Then you've got LinkedIn. How many people are using InMail to headhunt through LinkedIn? Quick show of hands. Quite a few of you. Okay. How compelling is the offering that you send in InMail to the potential target recruiter? Have you really thought that through? When it lands in their inbox in InMail, what message is it sending to them? One company I'm working with had moved to beautiful offices with a roof terrace, and they were able to mention that within the in-mail approach. Now, you know, it might be beyond the scope of most of us to move to fabulous offices with a roof terrace, but they did it, and part of the reason they moved was for their internal recruitment strategy, to make themselves a more attractive organisation to work for. But the overriding point I'm looking at here is, think about the message you're sending with an email. How attractive is it? We're all in sales. We know sell the benefit. When you send that email, is it selling the benefit? How attractive is it? How subtle is it? Get someone to critique it. Send it to yourself. And imagine when it arrived in your inbox, how would I react if I received that? Imagine that customer journey. So another aspect of this is your LinkedIn profile itself. How compelling is it? Is it in effect a CV? Most people's LinkedIn profile is. Or is it showcasing why you are a great place to work? It's not just about saying come and work for us. It's about making the grass greener on your side of the fence than it is somewhere else. And we're going to look at in part 3 a way to position yourself more attractively. Because as Mitch said, we can't all be Apple, but one thing we can do is position ourselves more attractively. If you work on that strategy, you will make your company more attractive, a more attractive place to work. So maybe an action from today is look at your LinkedIn profile. There's a guy called Andy Whitehead who is a very strong, has got some very strong knowledge on LinkedIn and digital marketing strategies generally. He spoke at my Pinnacle Club recently, and I would urge you to look someone like him up on the web. Have a chat with him. Look at what he's doing. Copy some of his ideas, maybe. And then your advertising. How strong are your adverts? Do they send a shiver down the spine of your competitors? Or have you banged them together in 5 minutes and got it on the web? Some years ago, Parker Bridge was described in Recruiter magazine as a shooting star of the recruitment industry. And that's because of PR, by the way, which we'll come on to. PR's got a big part to play in terms of attracting good caliber people and positioning your company as being an attractive place to work. And incidentally, you can do PR free of charge. Absolutely, I did most of my PR free. So I got to know a few journalists. One of them was a guy called Will Faltman, who was the writer for the Evening Standard. And we were in the Evening Standard probably 2 or 3 times a month. From free, by the way, completely free. So I got wind that Wilf was writing an article in Recruiter magazine about the recruitment industry, and he profiled it as Parker Bridge being one of the shooting stars of the recruitment industry. Well, the next thing you know, we've got an advert, and it said, could you be a shooting star, question mark. It had the real benefit sell on what that involved, profiled in the Recruiter magazine as one of the shooting stars of the recruitment industry, with the link through to the advertisement and so on. And a colleague of mine said she was on a plane on the way to Dublin, and she sat next to a recruitment director from a competitor, and they got chatting. And she said, that advert sent shivers down my spine when I saw it. Do your adverts send shivers down the spine of your competitors? Now, I've realized over time that I'm a pretty good writer, but I'm 7 out of 10. I'm a salesperson. Probably you are too. Engage a high-quality copywriter. Or, if you've already got a good marketing background under your belt, then obviously do it yourself. But having compelling headlines, this is a book I read years ago, really helped me to improve my marketing ability and my knowledge of headlines and so on. And Paul Gorman in this book, it is a little bit old now, by the way, but it transformed my thinking, so I thought I'd share it with you. So there's no mention of digital marketing in this book. But one of the things that he talked about was headline writing. And he said, when you write a headline, what he does, he writes 100 headlines before he settles on the final one. 100 headlines. Imagine doing that. When you write your recruitment advert for recruiters to come and work for you, how much time and thought do you put into that advertisement? See, he puts in more than we do, perhaps. So either, if you're a genius at it, do it yourself. If not, engage a quality copywriter. Make that advert stand out so that when someone sees it on the web or wherever, they think, I want to work for that company. What we're going to do now is have a quick look at trainees. And I'd like to do a similar exercise, but this time we'll just shout them out. Ideas to attract and find high-quality trainees for your organisation. So, anyone want to kick us off with a starter for 10 on that?
Approach universities directly.
Approach universities. Absolutely. Go and speak at universities. You know, pitch the careers department in your local university about sharing ideas and information about the marketplace and talk about a career in recruitment. Why not? A friend of mine did this at Cranfield for a different purpose. He had undergraduate MBAs swarming all over him. So if you do it from a recruiter's perspective, i.e. a trainee, then you're going to get some fresh graduates coming out of that. You can also get graduates prior to graduation. I know a number of companies who've recruited graduates on a kind of part-time basis in their final year of their degree. And they've got to understand the job. Low-cost resource, one or two of them convert, you know, who show the real mettle for the job. Okay? Any other suggestions? Assessment centres. You know, during Parker Bridge's growth phase, we were killing ourselves. Every night of the week, it seemed, we were interviewing. The buzzer's going, it's 6:30. The buzzer's going, it's 7 o'clock. Who's been there, by the way? It's hard, isn't it? So I sat down one day and I said, guys, you know, we're killing ourselves here. Why don't we do it on a Saturday? Why don't we do an assessment day on a Saturday? When you think about it, people will be, if they're still employed, it's easier for them to get off for the whole day. So we put an assessment campaign together and we got 30 or 40 people in the room, pre-qualified. We did a series of exercises, an introduction to recruitment, leadership exercises. We watched them with clipboards. You know, we sat there with clipboards, walking around the room, marking people. We took photographs of everyone, so you can weed out the ones that you are obviously not right, and you've got instant recall from 40 people who are the ones that you didn't feel were right. Then we got to half-time. We did a cut, graciously thanked them for their time, sent them on their way. Then we did a series of role plays and exercises, telephone, get the Blackberries out and the iPhones, role playing on the phone. Then we did another cut and we were down to people that we did back-to-back interviews with. And we split the room up into competencies. So it was 4 directors, each of us took one angle. And then we'd 20 minutes with that person, swap over, 20 minutes with the next person. And by the end of it, we made about 7 hires. In fact, there were 7. One of them left after 2 weeks to go back to Cornwall. That was it. The other 6, they're all running their own recruitment companies now, which is interesting. So I look back on that with some pride. Assessment campaigns. They need a bit of thought and you know, planning to get right. And here's the stats for you. I did an assessment campaign with an IT recruitment firm about 3 years ago. They got 700 people applied to the advertisement, a range of advertisements. 700 people. So it was a high-quality ad. 40 people were then chosen to come on the Saturday at a nice hotel. 38 turned up. And of those 38, they took on 6. And of those 6, 4 of them worked out. So you've got 4 out of 700. What does that tell you? What it tells me is you need to work hard at this. Even recruiting trainees is hard. It's a challenge. If you want high quality people, if you want game changers, if you want people who don't blame you for their underperformance, but instead delight you with their activity and they surprise you with their work ethic, you've got to work hard at it. So that's one reason why assessment days can be useful, because it takes a lot of that grunt work away. That 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, end of the day stuff where you're interviewing continuously. Assessment days have got a useful part to play. Any more ideas? Jobs fair in regard to?
Well, there's a lot of jobs around the country.
Sure.
A lot of graduates will go to find themselves a job.
Sure. So you could have a stand there perhaps, or a graduate fair. There's also online career fairs. Anyone done any online career fairs nowadays? There's some high quality stuff out there in the States. Online career fairs where you could have a pull strategy on the web. Okay, let's run through these and then we'll have a break in a moment. How many people in the room got into recruitment because you wandered into a recruitment company? Show of hands. Probably 2/3 of the room. So what's happening in your business? How many of your staff are proactively introducing candidates to you who are trapped in the wrong job? That's the way I look at it. You've got a candidate for your business speciality who's doing whatever they do, and they come in to be placed by you. But actually, they should be a recruiter. Who is spotting those people in your business? When I came into recruitment, within my first 6 weeks in the job, I had introduced 5 or 6 trainee recruiters to my boss. Hazard a guess at how much I got. It was a long time ago. Hazard a guess what my reward was. It wasn't nothing, no. It was £10, believe it or not. £10. It's not the money. I promise you, I wasn't that desperate even back then. What was it? What was it that made me proactively suggest candidates who I'm interviewing and thinking, this guy could be a recruiter? And then going to my boss and saying, interview this one. What made me do that, do you think?
You wanted your business to grow.
Pardon?
You wanted your business to grow, your company to grow.
Partially, yeah?
Your own progression.
Possibly.
Believe in what you're doing. You love your job.
Believed in what I'm doing.
You're asked to do it by your boss.
There's something sitting over that is leadership. There was it wasn't the £10, no. There was somebody in the business on my case, inspiring me on a continual basis. So every sales meeting. Right, guys, great sales meeting today. Final thing, you know we're expanding. Any candidates you interview this week who you feel are right for recruitment, can you please push them my way? And celebrate success. I love that phrase, catch people doing something right. So at the end of the week, here's another opportunity. Send a message to your staff of involvement. I need your help. I can't do this on my own. Involve your staff in the growth strategy. So there I am, Friday afternoon, celebrating with a good week, and we're giving out some prizes and so on. And one of the celebrations will be, we'll call my recruiter Jimmy. I want to make a special note today to Jimmy. Jimmy has recommended 3 trainee recruitment consultants this week to me. Jimmy, I'd just like to say thank you for your recommendations. And by the way, come to the front, there's a bottle of wine for you. So small recognition in front of other people. It's Pavlov's dog to a degree. If you reward people, you recognize it, you catch people doing something right, you'll find that they start to do it more often. So the reason that I did that was partially I had someone in that business who was showing me the way. Who is showing the way in your business? Who's doing that? Is it you or is it someone else? Then you've got seams. So if you get a seam, estate agents, for example, anyone formerly an estate agent in the room? Okay? So if I'd have interviewed you years ago, I'd have been thinking about your colleagues. Because if I can get you and show you there's a better career in recruitment, I'm thinking, who are your colleagues? Then you've got media sales companies. So anyone ex-media sales in the room? Quite a few. You think about this. If you've lasted 1 year in media sales, you've done pretty well. There's probably 30 people been sacked along that journey. And there you are, phone bashing a year on. You're ripe for the picking. In today's world, debt collection agencies. Think about that one. That's a pretty horrible job, isn't it? You're on the phone all day long, low pay. Here's the pitch to that person. How would you like to double your income and be trained in a more professional environment? Or something along those lines. So when you get one, mine the seam. Go back in for more. When you get somebody who joins your organization, do an entry interview. So I used to sit down with people when they joined and I'd involve them in the recruitment strategy on day one. And I'd say, welcome to the company, and I'd explain what's going to happen through the training, induction, and so on. And then I'd say, I'm really pleased to have you on board. Hopefully it's going to be a wonderful career. We'll help you with that, but obviously you've got your part to play. But we involve people in the growth of the business right from day one. And I'd like to discuss that with you now, because we're going for growth. So who else do you know in the marketplace maybe from your old company, maybe from networking, who you feel might be right for us. Please push them my way. I'll always listen to you. Send the message on day one that you want them to be your extended internal recruitment team. Peer references you've got there. Incoming sales calls. I've got to say this is a bit less applicable nowadays, but because you get people from all over the world sometimes calling you. But I'm always inquisitive. And I'll say to people, when somebody calls me, if it's a great sales call, I'll say, what part of the world are you in? And if they say, I'm in London, then I'm complimenting them on their sales ability. I say, oh, can I just say that's a great call you made to me today. By the way, I run a recruitment company. Could I ask you, whilst we're on the phone, have you ever thought about recruitment as a career? And occasionally you're interviewing somebody who's made a good pitch to you. Keep your eyes and ears open. One hire I got years ago was from a bar. Anyone done this? Yeah. You know, I'm at a bar, I'm waiting for a friend of mine. The guy behind the bar is a Kiwi. And I get chatting to him. And I said, how long have you been over? He said, 2 weeks. I said, all right, what did you do back home? Sales. How long are you over for? He said, I've got grandparent entry. I'm over for a minimum of 4 years, Mike. 2 weeks later, he's in a smart suit working for me. Who's walked into Carphone Warehouse recently? Who's had some good service from someone in a hotel or restaurant? Are you proactively looking out for great talent? Are you speculating? Are you asking the question? Opportunism is the key here. Now, looking at the We Are Hiring section, what are you doing on the web? This is from S3's website. So they've got video on there. How many people have embraced video in their organization as part of their internal recruitment strategy? 1 or 2? Okay. I believe this is ripe for takeoff. In fact, I've created a company behind it that creates videos. So I'm not here to pitch that, but I'm saying it's a growth opportunity. And, you know, this company have started to do that. When was the last time you looked at your competitors' websites from the point of view of internal recruitment? If you haven't got the time to do it, pay someone to do it. Get somebody else in your business to produce a report. What are they doing well? What are those organizations doing well that you can do better? Use the Japanese methodology after the Second World War. They copied what the Americans were doing in the car industry, but did it better. There's nothing wrong with that. So copy your competitors and improve upon it. But the foundation for that is, for goodness sake, have a look at their websites. Find out what it is they're doing. National Sales Awards. Anyone been to the National Sales Awards in Birmingham? You know, a beer-filled drunken hall of hundreds of salespeople. Tracking systems. Some of my best hires, one lady was called Shelley. When I interviewed Shelley as a 21, 22-year-old, she was a little bit green. Great attitude, but not quite ready. So I tracked her for 12 months. I stayed in touch with her. I sent her emails. I updated her. 12 months later, she joined the company. 7 or 8 years later, she was an associate director. And in that intervening 12 months, she blossomed as a person. She grew up a little bit. What rookies have you interviewed recently who fit that profile? Which trainees have you interviewed maybe a year ago, 6 months ago, who actually, if you had the foresight to track them, put them into your proactive tracking systems and stay in touch with them? Every now and then, you're going to get a really good one. I had some very good success with that route. Then you've got direct mail or e-shots to your existing database. If you've got a candidate database of 40,000 people, mail shot them. You know, career and recruitment. How many people have interview face-to-face? Could show of hands, please? Interview face-to-face? So half the room, maybe more. Okay. What's on reception? What literature is in reception about a career in recruitment for you? Is that an action for you? So have some literature on reception. Get them to put their hand up. You know, let them to put their hand up, because your recruiters might not spot this. So get them to read that literature, career and recruitment. The apprentice scheme. How many people using apprentices? Number of people I know of in the room. So, you know, the thing about the apprentice scheme, it's a low-cost resource. And you have to kiss a few frogs. In fact, quite a few frogs. Because the person can't be a graduate to be part of the apprentice scheme. But you get a low-cost hire through the government apprentice scheme. Get 20 or 30 of them in a room. And if 19 of them aren't very good and you hire one, that's not a bad afternoon. So low-cost way to do it. A couple more before we wrap up. The old-fashioned A-board. Now, I have to confess, I was a snob. I don't think I'm a snob in life generally, but in this instance, I was a snob. And I met a lady called Deirdre Moynihan, who was the founder of Badenoch and Clark. I used to network with Deirdre when I ran Parker Bridge. And one evening, I went for a beer with her, or a glass of wine. I met her at her London Bridge offices. And she had an A-board outside the office. We were a consultancy. We were on the first floor, and we were slightly elitist. So I said to Deirdre over a glass of wine, Deirdre, what's with the A-board? And she said to me, Mike, do you mean are we an agency or are we a consultancy? I said, well, I suppose it crossed my mind. She said, well, let me tell you, we had a candidate last week who walked in off the street and we placed them. We made a £40,000 fee. So I spluttered into my wine and I thought, I'm going to get an A-board. So I did. I went back to the office and I said to the fellow directors, we're getting an A-board. And they said, no, we're not getting an A-board. It's down market. I said, look, we're going to get one. We got a really professionally printed one. And we put it on the street, just not far from here, Chancery Lane. And when the councilman came around, we used to pull it back in because you get fined. And then we put it back out again after he'd gone. WorldCom closed down. We opened a new telecoms division. We had a drove of candidates coming in from that, which was interesting. But also, we got trainee recruiters. Trainee recruitment consultant on the A-board. Now, some people in the room thinking, I don't want to do that. That's up to you. I kind of bit my tongue a bit and I thought I was wrong. And I'm pleased that I did it. So it's not going to be an idea that works for everyone. Last thing on rookies is sharpen the focus. If you want your staff to become extended internal recruiters, how do you stop them from missing this? When you see comments like that on one of your candidates, one of the candidates on your database, surely you're thinking, that's a recruitment consultant. That could be a recruitment consultant. Could be a trainee, provided they're in the right salary bracket. So how do you stop your staff from missing that? Because they will. Even if you train them, even if you coach them, they'll miss it occasionally. One way to do it is this, where you have a visual bar chart in your organization of the number of internal referrals. Build some competition. So, Shaheen here might have recommended 11 people to me as the director of that recruitment company, whereas John has only recommended 4. I can keep an eye on that now. And just having a visual mechanism where you can reward people, praise them, you can go to John and say, John, well done on those 4, but can you get a few more this week? It's a simple idea and it works. Is there anything more important in your business than surrounding yourself with recruiters who bill quickly and consistently? So how's your recruitment plan coming along? I hope part 1 of Recruiting Recruiters has really got you thinking, and I look forward to joining you in part 2 when we'll be looking at critical additions to your plan and how to get high quality recruiters and trainees beating a path to your door.